I knew something was wrong the second the auditorium fell silent. Not the good kind of silence, not the kind that settles in after a breathtaking performance. This was the cold, awkward kind, the kind that wraps around your chest and squeezes. My son Ethan and my daughter Lily had just finished performing their original song. He wrote the melody. She wrote the lyrics. Their small hands were still hovering over the piano and mic stand, trembling, like they weren't sure if the moment was over or just beginning. But I knew the second that final note faded into the velvet curtains and no one clapped. No polite applause, no encouraging smiles, just silence. And then, from somewhere behind me, just loud enough to cut through the air like a blade, "Those are the kids with the single mom. Poor things." I froze. My hands were gripping the edge of my seat so tight I could feel my fingers going numb. My ears were ringing. My throat tightened. I couldn't even turn around, couldn't look at who said it. I just sat there, still and stiff, like maybe if I didn't move I wouldn't fall apart. Their names are Ethan and Lily Walker. He's 10. She's 8. And tonight they stood on that massive stage in front of a full city auditorium. Judges, teachers, wealthy parents with tripods and DSLRs, and played their hearts out. They called it What It Feels Like to Remember. They worked on it every night for weeks. Ethan on his thrift store keyboard, Lily scribbling verses into a lined notebook with a cracked cover. They believed in that song. They believed maybe, just maybe, if they shared it, someone would understand them a little better. But no one clapped. Not even one pity clap. Not even a cough to break the tension. Just this heavy vacuum of judgment. I looked at them from my seat in the middle of the crowd. Ethan bowed like we practiced, then peeked up, searching. Lily smiled, a little unsure, then looked at her big brother like she was asking, "Did we do something wrong?" And in that split second, I saw it. The confusion, the disappointment, the slow realization that no one cared. I wanted to run up there, grab both their hands, and just leave. Like we were escaping a fire no one else could see. And maybe I would have, if not for what happened next. Someone stood up. He was sitting all the way in the back, alone, tall, older, dressed in a gray suit that didn't shine or demand attention, just quiet, respectful. He wasn't clapping, he wasn't smiling, he was just moving, walking, down the center aisle, toward the stage, and with every step he took, the room shifted. Whispers, confused stares. The judges turned toward each other, visibly unsure of what was happening. The next act, a synchronized dance troupe, was already waiting in the wings. But something about this man, the way he moved with purpose, like he'd done this before, like he belonged here more than anyone, made me stop holding my breath. Made me think, maybe this isn't the end of the story. Maybe this is the beginning. To understand that moment, the silence, the whispers, the man in the gray suit, you have to know where we came from. My name is Olivia Walker. I'm 34 years old. I've been raising Ethan and Lily on my own since my ex-husband walked out 8 years ago. We live in a small third-floor apartment on the edge of the city, the kind where the walls are thin and the heat clanks to life in winter, like it's fighting to keep breathing. It's not much, but it's ours. Every morning starts early. I clock in at the city library by 8 a.m., help shelve books, answer questions, clean up after kids in the reading corner. At 5 p.m., I walk back home, make dinner, help with homework. Then I change uniforms and catch the 7:15 bus to the diner, where I serve coffee to night owls and graveyard shift workers until nearly 2 a.m. It's exhausting, but it pays the rent, and it lets me keep music in my kids' lives. Ethan and Lily don't have tablets or game consoles, but they have each other, and they have music. It started with Ethan. When he was 5, he used to tap rhythms on empty cereal boxes. He could find beats in anything: the sink, the stairs, the back of my car seat. On his 7th birthday, I found an old keyboard on Craigslist for $20. It was missing 3 keys and smelled faintly of cigarettes, but it lit up when he plugged it in, and to him, it was magic. Lily came next. She didn't play, not at first. She wrote. Scraps of paper, backs of receipts, grocery lists, anything she could find. Lines like, "The sun hides when I miss you." If dreams had a sound, it would be this. She used to leave them on my pillow like little gifts. One night, Ethan found a folded-up lyric she wrote and asked, "Can I make this into a song?" And that was the beginning. They started creating together, him at the keys, her beside him with a pencil, and that notebook she carried everywhere. Their music wasn't childish or silly. It was soft, strange, beautiful, like something blooming in the dark. We couldn't afford music lessons or fancy software, so they taught themselves from YouTube clips and free library books. I bought blank CDs from the dollar store. They made their own album covers with markers and scotch tape. Every Saturday, they performed in the corner of Lincoln Park, near the fountain, where tourists walked by with cameras and kids played tag. Sometimes people stopped, sometimes they didn't, but Ethan and Lily played anyway. They didn't do it for applause. They did it because it felt like breathing. And I did everything I could to support that. I skipped meals to buy them strings and headphones. I turned down extra shifts when they had something special to show me. I told them again and again, "Your music matters. Even if no one claps. Even if they never listen. Keep playing." So when Ethan came home one afternoon, a flyer in his backpack for the citywide youth talent showcase, my stomach turned. I knew what that was. Not just a school talent show, but a polished, curated event with judges from the local conservatory, scouts from youth programs, newspaper coverage, real lights, real pressure, real judgment. And we weren't ready for that. Not financially, not emotionally. But they were already holding hands, already bouncing with that eager kind of energy only kids can have. "We want to perform the song," Lily said. "Our song," Ethan added, "what it feels like to remember." They named it after a memory of our old apartment, the one before this one, the one with the peeling green walls and a cracked window that whistled when it rained. I didn't say yes at first. I told them I'd think about it. That night, after my shift, I sat at the kitchen table and cried into my hands. Not because I didn't believe in them, but because I did. I knew what it meant to walk into a space where no one expects anything from you, and to still offer something sacred, to give a piece of yourself to people who may never care. But they wanted to try, and I couldn't take that from them. So we practiced. Every night after homework, I'd cook while listening to their harmonies float in from the living room. Lily taping new lyrics to the fridge. Ethan asking, "Does this sound too sad?" Me answering, "Sad is okay, baby. Sad is real." We picked outfits from what they already had, pressed, patched, restitched where needed. I polished Ethan's shoes with olive oil and buffed them with a rag. I braided Lily's hair carefully, just how she asked, neat but not like I'm trying too hard. The night before the showcase, we sat on the floor and listened to the final version of their song on a dusty old CD player. It was haunting, like a lullaby made of echoes. And I remember thinking, maybe this is the moment, the one that changes something. I just didn't expect it to hurt so much before it healed. The night of the showcase, we arrived early, too early. I hadn't meant to be nervous. I told myself it was just another event, just another crowd. But walking into that grand city auditorium with its velvet curtains and chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a movie palace, I felt small. Ethan and Lily walked on either side of me, each holding one of my hands. They were quiet, their fingers twitching nervously, but they didn't let go. Backstage, everything's buzzed with energy, dancers stretching, violinists tuning, kids in glittery blazers rehearsing lines. The other parents stood in polished clusters, sipping complimentary coffee, discussing private instructors and audition schedules. No one looked like us. Lily adjusted the ribbon on her dress, one we'd ironed the night before and patched under the hem. Ethan clutched the USB stick that held their backing track like it was gold. I squeezed both their hands. "You two have something no one else here does," I whispered. They looked at me. I smiled. Each other. When their names were called, my breath caught. They stepped onto the stage together, small figures in a sea of light. The piano glistened under the spotlight. The microphone waited. Ethan sat first, placing his fingers gently on the keys. Lily stepped up to the mic, notebook tucked into her dress pocket for luck. Then they began. The first notes were soft, tender and slow, like remembering something that used to hurt but doesn't anymore. Lily's voice floated in next, clear, honest, untrained but true. "I once knew a sound like the space between words, where silence feels warm and memory hurts." It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, it was real. And I thought, Maybe, just maybe, they'll hear it. But as I looked around the auditorium, I saw the truth. They weren't listening. A pair of teens in the front row giggled. A man in a blazer, one of the judges, checked his phone. A woman near me popped open a tin of mints, passed one to her friend like this was intermission. And then, a voice, soft, but sharp enough to pierce everything inside me. Those are the poor kids, the ones with the single mom? I didn't turn. I didn't need to. I knew the type. The kind of person who never had to explain to their child why their birthday gift came from a thrift store. The kind who thinks free lunch means lesser dreams. The kind who believes struggle stains talent. I stared at the stage, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Ethan played on, hands steady, eyes closed like the music was carrying him somewhere else. Lily sang her next line with a tremble in her voice, but she didn't stop. And if nobody hears me, I'll still sing out loud. They finished on a soft, unresolved chord that echoed like a question. And then, nothing. No applause, no cough. Just the sound of a chair creaking and a pen clicking against a clipboard. Lily bowed, just like we'd practiced. Ethan stood beside her, looking up, waiting. Their eyes scanned the room, searching for something. Anything. But the crowd had already moved on in their minds. One judge flipped his notes to the next page. The MC peeked out, ready to introduce the next act. And I sat there frozen. I could feel the crack forming in Lily's face first. The way her smile wavered. The way her shoulders curled inward, as if she wanted to fold into herself and disappear. Ethan's jaw tensed. He kept his eyes on the floor, too proud to look broken. But I saw it. I knew. They walked off stage without a word, Lily clutching the hem of her dress. Ethan still holding the USB stick that no one had cared to hear. I couldn't breathe. Every part of me wanted to run to them, wrap them up, pull them out, never let them feel this again. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, hands clasped tight in my lap. A mother too afraid to fall apart in public. Because if I cried, I wasn't sure I'd be able to stop. I don't know what I would have done if he hadn't stood up. I was frozen, still staring at the empty stage where my kids had given everything and gotten nothing. And then, from the very back of the room, a man stood. At first no one noticed, but I did. Tall, older, dressed in a simple gray suit. No camera, no phone in his hand. No sign that he belonged to any of these perfect little circles of perfect little people. But the way he moved, slow, deliberate, made the whole room shift. He began walking down the center aisle. Not rushed, not angry, just steady. The whispers started almost immediately. Who's that? What's happening? Even the judges were confused, shuffling papers, exchanging nervous glances. But no one stopped him. By the time he reached the front, the entire auditorium had gone silent. He turned to the judges standing just below the stage where Ethan and Lily had disappeared backstage. "Excuse me," he said, calm, firm, his voice carried like it belonged there. "Would it be all right if I borrowed the microphone for a moment?" No big speech, no theatrics, just quiet authority. The head judge, a man with a maroon blazer and gold lapel pin, looked as startled as the rest of us. But after a pause, he gave a small nod. A student handed the man the mic. He stepped onto the stage, turned to face the audience, and for the first time all night, everyone paid attention. "My name is Dr. Jonathan Brooks," he began. "I wasn't scheduled to be here tonight. My flight home was canceled. I happened to stop by because I love hearing young artists perform." He paused. "But what I heard tonight stopped me cold." My heart clenched. He turned his head, toward the side of the stage, toward where my children stood just out of sight. "Ethan, Lily," he said gently, "did you write that piece yourselves?" I couldn't see them, but I knew how they would react. Shy, unsure, still smarting from the silence they'd just endured. But after a moment, a soft voice, "Yes, sir." The whole room shifted again. Dr. Brooks turned back to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, that was not just a song. That was a story. That was a voice." People began to murmur. I even heard someone near me whisper, like they couldn't believe it, "Juilliard." He smiled faintly. "I've spent my life teaching music. I've trained concert pianists, composers, performers all over the world. And in all those years, very few pieces have reached me the way this one did." Dead silence. Then he looked to the judges. "With your permission, I would like to ask Ethan and Lily to play it again." A ripple of shock moved through the audience. But this time, Dr. Brooks added, I'd like to accompany them. Gasps, actual gasps. The judges looked at one another, caught completely off guard. But what could they say? The man standing before them wasn't just anybody. He was somebody they couldn't dismiss. A nod. Approval. Dr. Brooks turned his head once more. Ethan, Lily, would you join me? I watched as my kids, my babies, stepped slowly back onto the stage. Ethan carried himself like he was trying not to shake. Lily clutched her notebook like a lifeline. They sat beside him at the piano. This man who minutes ago had been a stranger, and now felt like the only person in the world who saw them. He didn't take over. He didn't control. He waited. For them. And when Ethan placed his fingers on the keys, when Lily took her place at the mic, Dr. Brooks laid his hands lightly on the piano beside them, ready to follow their lead. And for the second time that night, my children began to play. But this time, everything was different. The first note was the same, but it didn't sound the same. This time, Ethan's fingers moved with more weight, more certainty, like he finally believed the sound deserved space. Lily's voice came in right after, still gentle, still raw, but steadier now, like she wasn't singing at the audience anymore, but through them. And Dr. Brooks? He didn't overpower, he didn't embellish, he simply followed. With each soft chord he played beneath Ethan's melody, it was like he was holding them up from underneath, quietly, powerfully, saying, "You're not alone." The harmony that bloomed between them, between three people from three different worlds, was something no one in that auditorium expected. It filled the space like light warming a cold room. I watched the crowd shift, slowly at first. The parents who had been scrolling on their phones put them down. The judge in the maroon blazer leaned forward, pen forgotten in his lap. Even the students backstage, loud and playful just minutes earlier, stood still in the wings, wide-eyed. No one giggled, no one whispered. They listened, really listened. When Lily reached the final verse, "Even if no one claps, I'll still play the song." Her voice didn't crack this time. It soared. And when Ethan played that final, delicate, unresolved chord, Dr. Brooks layered one last note underneath it, not to complete it, but to give it something to stand on. Then silence. But not the hollow silence from before. This one was sacred. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. A breath, a heartbeat, a stillness too perfect to break. And then a single clap. Then another. And then, like a wave, the entire room stood. Applause exploded. Loud, full, unfiltered. Claps, cheers, whistles. Phones went up. Cameras clicked. People who hadn't even looked at them earlier were now clapping like they'd just witnessed a miracle. One of the judges wiped her eyes. Another reached for the program, circling their names again. I stood too, hands shaking, clapping so hard it hurt. My children weren't bowing this time to silence. They were bowing to a room that finally saw them. And that smile, the one Lily gave Dr. Brooks as she stepped away from the mic, wasn't timid. It was real, full. A child who had been cracked open and realized nothing inside her was broken. Ethan turned to the professor, unsure what to say. Dr. Brooks simply gave them both a small nod, then turned to face the audience and bowed once himself. Not grandly, but with the quiet reverence of someone who knew. This moment wasn't his, it was theirs. As they walked off stage together, Olivia in the middle, Dr. Brooks behind them, the crowd kept clapping. People turned to each other whispering, "Who are they?" Kids pointed. Parents craned their necks. Even one of the judges stepped off the platform to follow them backstage, clipboard in hand, smile on her face like she'd just discovered a treasure she almost missed. I stood there, still clapping, my heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon through fire and come out the other side alive. For the first time, I didn't care what anyone thought of me. Not about my hair, not about my shoes, not about the fact that I was a single mom working 2 jobs. All I saw was this, my children, on a stage, seen, heard, honored, not because someone pitied them, but because someone recognized their truth. And in that moment, I realized they had never needed the world's permission, only its attention. And tonight, they got both. Backstage was chaos, but not the kind we were used to. Not the kind where people brush past you like you're invisible. Not the kind where you're ignored while others take their bows. No, this was different. This time people were looking for us. A judge with tears still drying on her cheeks walked up to Ethan and Lily, knelt down to eye level, and said softly, "That was the most honest piece I've ever heard in this auditorium." Other performers clapped as we passed. Some high-fived the kids, others just stood there, stunned, as if they'd just seen something they couldn't explain. I found them just off to the side of the stage, sitting together on a folding bench. Lily had taken her shoes off. Ethan was sipping from a paper cup of water. They looked stunned, quiet, like they hadn't fully come back to earth yet. I knelt in front of them, cupping Lily's cheek in one hand and resting the other on Ethan's knee. "You did it," I whispered. Lily blinked. "They clapped." Ethan nodded slowly. "They heard us." I smiled, trying not to cry. "They sure did." Then he appeared again. Dr. Brooks. He walked over, slow and calm, just like before. No fanfare, no theatrics. He stopped a few feet away and gave a small smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," I said, standing. Before I could thank him, he gently raised a hand. "Your children," he said, turning to them with a look I will never forget, "have something rare." He crouched down, resting one knee on the ground. "I've worked with hundreds of young musicians. Many have talent. Some have drive. But what Ethan and Lily have," he tapped his chest lightly, "is truth." Lily looked down. Ethan fidgeted with his shirt sleeve. Dr. Brooks reached into his inner coat pocket and pulled out a business card. "I'd like to connect them with a program I help run," he said, handing the card to me. "It's part of a youth arts foundation based in Chicago. They offer weekend mentorship for gifted young composers, private sessions, studio access, guidance from industry professionals." I blinked. "Do they audition?" He shook his head. "I've already heard what I needed to." I looked down at the card. Embossed letters, a downtown address, his name. I looked back up. I'm not sure we could afford something like that," I said, my voice small, honest. His response came without hesitation. "That won't be a problem. This is about access, not income. They don't just deserve to be noticed. They deserve to be nurtured." For a moment, none of us said anything. Then Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Can we go?" she whispered. "To that place?" I looked at Ethan. His eyes were shining with something I hadn't seen before. Hope. Real, grounded, blooming hope. I nodded, trying not to let the tears spill. "Yes, baby," I said. "Yes, you can." Dr. Brooks stood, offering his hand to Ethan. My son shook it like a young man, firm, respectful. Then he turned to Lily, and instead of offering a handshake, he bowed. She giggled, curtsied, and whispered, "Thank you." Dr. Brooks smiled wide for the first time that night. "No," he said. "Thank you for reminding us all why music matters." He tipped his head to me, then walked off toward the crowd, already blending back into the background, like the quiet guardian angel I hadn't known we needed. Later that night, at home, Lily refused to take off her dress. She sat cross-legged on the living room floor, humming something new, her old keyboard resting in her lap. Ethan was sprawled out beside her, scribbling notes on the back of a used envelope. I brought over 2 bowls of cereal and set them on the floor between us. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. They were already writing their next song. It's been 5 months since that night. 5 months since 2 kids played a song no one clapped for, until one man listened. We still live in the same apartment. I still work both jobs. I still bring home leftovers from the diner wrapped in foil. But something has changed. Not on the outside. We still use coupons. Lily still wears shoes that used to belong to Ethan. Our car still makes that rattling noise in the cold. But inside, everything's different. Every Saturday morning, before the sun rises, I pack a thermos of hot cocoa, and we drive. An hour north, through cornfields and fog, to a building that looks nothing like our world. The Youth Music Conservatory in downtown Chicago. Ethan and Lily walk through its doors like they belong there now. Because they do. They study with mentors who've written symphonies, scored films, played on stages I'll never see. They sit at grand pianos and scribble ideas on real sheet music. They talk about chord structure and theory and layering mood. Last week, Lily asked me what kind of emotion a suspended chord made me feel. Ethan tried explaining why silence in a composition can be more powerful than any crescendo. They're not just learning music, they're speaking it. And that first song, the one no one clapped for, they still play it. But now they play it differently. Not louder, not faster, just fuller, like they know they own it now. Like they're no longer asking the world to hear them. They're inviting it. And people are listening. She found me after and said, "I've never forgotten them, but tonight, they became unforgettable." I smiled, said thank you, But what I wanted to say was, they always were. You just didn't see it. I used to think my job as a mother was to protect them from pain, especially then.